South Africa is in the middle of a data center boom, with more than 50 billion rand in investments expected over the next 3 years. And the government is now treating infrastructure as critical as electricity and ports. Equinix, the US-based digital infrastructure company, have been approved by municipal authorities in Cape Town to develop 2 data centers in the city, which will be one of the largest in the country. And I'm joined by Sandile Dube, Managing Director of Equinix South Africa, to talk about this. Hi, Sandile. I'm so happy for you to join me today.
Good afternoon, Linda. It's really a great opportunity to be talking to you today, and thank you for having me on your show.
Well, this is a really big moment for digital infrastructure, with AI demand now surging in South Africa, seeing itself as the data center hub of Africa. So how do you see your role in it?
I think firstly, thank you very much for having me on your show. It's really great to be speaking to you this afternoon. And my name is Sandile Dube. I'm the Managing Director at Equinix in South Africa. Equinix is the world's digital infrastructure company, and we are a Fortune 500 company. Our purpose is to be the platform where the world comes together, enabling innovations that enrich our work, our life, and our planet. We currently have in excess of 280 data centers in 36 countries across the 3 regions where we operate, being Americas, Europe, Middle East and Africa, as well as Asia Pacific. All of our data centers form part of a global ecosystems where more than 10,500 customers can connect to each other and to providers of services such as IT and cloud computing. Linda, our presence in South Africa is part of a broader Africa strategy, with South Africa playing an important role given its strategic location, its connectivity, the enterprise demand, as well as cloud adoption in this particular market, Linda, within the broader African continent. Thank you.
But you're also in West Africa, aren't you?
We certainly are, Linda. So we've entered the African continent approximately 4 years ago, with an initial entry into West Africa, where today we have presence in Nigeria, Ghana, as well as Cote d'Ivoire.
And you've secured land in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. So how far down the road are you to develop these sites?
Linda, contrary to what has been reported in the media, the land acquisition in Cape Town forms part of a longer-term consideration of potential opportunities in South Africa. There are currently no firm plans to develop the site, and any future plans would be approached through the appropriate processes and engagement, and our immediate focus remains on our broader operations, our investment, and commitment to supporting South Africa's digital infrastructure needs, Linda. However, you're quite right that we are building. We are building in Johannesburg, and we are building our JN1 or Johannesburg 1 facility. As we reported in the media before, our initial phase is already operational, and there are clients that are consuming that service. However, there are 2 remaining phases that are pending in that particular facility. And on completion, the Johannesburg 1 facility will be a 24-megawatt facility.
And what is the completion date for that one?
It's work in progress, Linda. As soon as we have bedded down some of our plans in relation to that expansion, we'll make sure that we communicate those dates accordingly to yourselves and others.
Well, when it comes to data centers, the big pushback is about power and water, and South Africa's history of load shedding. So, how are you designing to cater for South Africa's water and power shortages?
Yeah, I think that's really important, Linda, and thank you for asking the question. So personally, I think that, the conversation around the use of resources with the evolution of technology is one that will continue to evolve over a period of time. However, at Equinix, we recognize the importance of responsible infrastructure development in South Africa, particularly in relation to power and water. Sustainability and resilience are therefore key consideration for us in the planning and operations of all of our facilities, including the use of renewable energy, Linda. However, I do think that there's a significant need for us to raise awareness around the water use, particularly in our facilities. Linda, we fundamentally use what we call as a closed loop water systems, which means that there is no additional water that is being used in these facilities that also leverages dry cooling. However, I see that as an opportunity for us to really raise the awareness in relation to the water use. And from a power point of view, obviously our aspirations is to ensure that we cover all of our facilities 100% by renewable energy.
There's Foxglove, a UK company, and the Housing Assembly, who said there's not enough transparency on how much water you will use actually in Cape Town. So how do you respond to their complaints?
Linda, firstly, we take stakeholder engagement very seriously, first and foremost. And secondly, to my earlier point, I think that Cape Town, firstly, it's a long-term consideration for us. However, what's quite critical to note, I think we do need to raise the awareness that, firstly, it should never be a trade-off between a responsible data center expansion with the economic contribution that data centers bring to our market, like South Africa. And we've seen in many global markets where data centers have played a pivotal role in contributing meaningfully to both the economic growth as well as to society in the markets where we operate. And that's essentially some of the key elements that we need to be leveraging in terms of contributing to our economic growth in South Africa.
How do you see Equinix's position towards the other players in the market, Teraco? What is your differentiator?
Sure. Linda, I think first and foremost, I do acknowledge and recognize the important role that other providers have played in building South Africa's digital infrastructure. However, our contribution is our global platform, is our interconnection capability, and our ability to connect South African businesses into a wider international digital ecosystem. Data centers are foundational, Linda, to the way businesses, public institutions, and consumers and the use of digital services. And our role as Equinix extend beyond operating data centers to helping South Africans better understand the economic and societal value of digital infrastructure. So, Linda, simply put, we're not simply providing data center space here in this market. We're delivering a global interconnection platform which enables businesses to connect directly and securely with cloud providers, with network providers, with partners and customers, both at a local level as well as at an international level.
So do you already have firm commitments from hyperscalers, for Equinix to provide the services to them?
Linda, as you know, that Equinix is really focused on building ecosystems across all the markets where we operate, and those ecosystems comprise of not only hyperscalers, but it also comprises of network providers. It comprises of over 10,500 customers that we have within our ecosystem. However, we wanting to bring that global interconnection ecosystems into South Africa, really focus on delivering value to our enterprise customers first and foremost, because that's really the opportunity that really sets us apart, where we're really opening up South Africa to the rest of the world and the rest of the world to South Africa, enabling South African businesses to really access international markets within an instant.
I saw a video of somebody, I think it was CNN, going into an Equinix data center, and it was all, quite cloak and dagger. So can you give us an idea what the Johannesburg one would look like from the outside and from the inside?
Look, firstly, Linda, I want to invite you to come and visit me at the Johannesburg One data center. It would be my honor to actually host you. It's a beautifully looking facility, and one that really houses some critical infrastructure on behalf of our clients. And I'd love to have the opportunity to host you and give you a tour of this facility when you are in the country.
And safety is always the issue in South Africa. How do you keep it safe and secure?
Oh, Linda, there's quite a number of measures, security measures that are in place. In fact, every time we bring customers to see this facility, they're always quite amazed by the level of security that is in place as you come into the main gate, so to speak, and well into the rest of the facility itself. And it's really that's driven by the responsibility that we carry on behalf of our clients. So security is a fundamental priority for us.
You've got policy wins in your sales now. So what would really move the needle? What would you want the South African government to do? Special economic zone status, priority grid access, or something else?
I think South Africa, we're quite privileged to be in the position that we're in, where the government has made significant strides in really helping operators such as ourselves to operate in this market with ease. You mentioned power, for instance. I think the government has made a significant strides in really attending and really addressing some of the power challenges that we have had in the past. You'll recall that we used to have daily power outages, which is no longer the case for a number of years now. And it's also been reported that we now have excess power, obviously with an intention of really supporting the growth and the development of data centers in this market. And I see that as a significant privilege, a privilege that many markets don't have. So I'm really grateful and really feel honored that the South African government has taken a deliberate stance to really make it a lot easier and quite seamless for data center operators to operate in this market.
Well, if we look at data centers worldwide, it's either solar power or taking from the grid or small nuclear reactors, SMRs. Are you thinking of that?
Renewable energy is fundamentally key, Linda, to the sustainability of data centers, and we're certainly looking into that, particularly in the South African market. And we really continue to assess the market in terms of what's available, notwithstanding some of the challenges that exist within that realm. However, it is a priority for us, and it's also a priority that we carry on behalf of our clients.
Is nuclear energy a possibility?
Not at this stage.
Not in South Africa, though?
No, not at this stage in South Africa. Thank you.
You said in the beginning, what's your position? Just tell us a bit more about your background.
Absolutely. Linda, I've had the fortunate opportunity to be in the South African ICT sector in excess of 2 decades now. Prior to Equinix, I was the managing director at Hewlett Packard Enterprise in South Africa. And prior to that, I had various roles at NTT, former Dimension Data. And really, the opportunity that I have here at Equinix is one that really excites me, given the impact and the role of data centers in relation to everything that we've spoken about. And to really be at the helm of the South African business at Equinix and making a significant contribution to our economy and also to the development of policies and regulations that really impact this particular sector, with the sole mandate of having a meaningful contribution or making a meaningful contribution to society. That is something that I'm fundamentally honored to have that opportunity. And I'm really pleased that Equinix has shown its confidence to appoint me as its leader in the South African business.
Were you always interested in IT? Were you playing with computers from a young age?
I certainly did not. It's an opportunity that I actually stumbled across. I'll spare you the detail of that detail. However, when you do visit me in Johannesburg One Data Center, I promise you to take you into a lot more detail on how I got into IT.
Now you've got to tell us. I'm curious. I want to know.
Linda, much to my parents' disappointment, when I finished school, I certainly didn't know what I wanted to do. However, I did know what I did not want to do. And at the time, I had the opportunity to venture into medicine, to study medicine. And I turned around and said to my parents, if there's one thing that I know I don't want to do is to study medicine. And that's how I ended up in IT.
Sandile Dube, Managing Director of Equinix South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Linda, for your time. It was really a great pleasure to be talking to you this afternoon.